Hi, I'm Jinxit, and welcome to the story of my worst day ever. This is my first storytime video, and hopefully not the last. I've wanted to make videos like this for a long time, and I've finally gotten around to doing it. The worst day of my life feels like a great place to start, so let's get into it. The date was 25th of July 2019. This was the date that I was supposed to be making my big move from England to Denmark. I had lived in the UK ever since I can remember, and I met my partner online, who lived in Denmark. And due to Brexit putting pressure on us, I decided to jump at the opportunity to move to Denmark to be with my boyfriend. Everything was planned. I was prepared to move on July 25th. I scheduled pickup of my belongings with a moving company, and my parents even offered to drive me to the airport. However, on the day of the big move, everything just went wrong. Firstly, the drive to the airport was about 5 to 6 hours. My parents live in Devon, the southwest of the UK, and my flight was from London Stansted, which is the other side of that country. My parents got up early and we were on the road as soon as possible. We were on the road for about 2.5 hours, and we pulled into a rest stop to get something to eat. We stayed a little bit longer than we should have, but we were back on the road. And then the GPS said that we still had like 4 hours and I needed to be there in 3 at the very least to check in my bags. There were a lot of traffic jams causing major delays, and things really started to look bad at this point. My parents searched for alternative routes to shorten the travel time. Luckily we found one, but it seemed like everyone had the same idea we did, which meant our shorter route quickly became longer than before. It was a very stressful drive, but after hours of driving, we finally made it to the airport. But my flight was in less than an hour. Because we were in a rush, my dad went to park the car whilst me and my mum rushed inside to get my bags checked in. The minute we got out of the car, we were hit by this wall of heat. Because it turned out the UK was currently going through a major heat wave on that day, with parts of the UK reaching higher temperatures of 31 degrees Celsius, and we were in that part of the UK. It was a heat that I had never felt ever, like living in England. Me and my mum got inside, we checked in my bags, and we had to wait anxiously for my dad to get back from the car. And as we were waiting, I could see the queue in security was just getting longer and longer, and my anxiety was really beginning to get to me at this point. Finally, my dad got to us, and I was very late at this point. And this is probably the worst part of the trip for me, because it was a very emotional moment. It was my first time moving out of my parents, and I was not only moving out, but I was moving to another country. But because of the delay, the fact that we were late, we had to really rush our goodbyes, and it was just heartbreaking. I was so upset. I had to just quickly hug my parents, say bye, I love you, and then I had to rush to the queue. I waited in security for half an hour, and when it finally got to my turn, I was stuck waiting for another 10 minutes because there was a shift change, and I was in tears at this point. When it was finally my turn, I got stopped because my graphics card was in my hand luggage. I kept it out of my computer to keep it safe, as I was worried that it might snap off the motherboard in transit. So I packed it in my bag amongst my clothes just to keep it, with me. It was an expensive graphics card. I don't want it to break. Eventually they confirmed it was safe and I was allowed through security. But the minute I was through security, I just had to run. I had to run through the duty-free shopping area, which is huge. If you've ever been to Stansted Airport, it is this huge, just endless stretch of shops until you finally get to the place where they have the screens with all the gates. It seems a bit stupid to me that they have it like that. Because if you're in a rush, which I was, you have to fight through a crowd of shoppers to get to the gate numbers, the sign with the gates on them. But I finally got there and I looked at my flight and it said boarding closed. My heart just sank. I found out what my gate was departing from, and it was at the other end of the airport. So as if I hadn't already been late and delayed, I had to now run to the other end of the airport just to have a slight chance to see if I can make it. So I ran. And bear in mind, the airport was full of people because it was the summer and that's when everyone goes traveling. The airport had no air conditioning and it was 31 degrees Celsius. I was sweating bullets and I had tears streaming down my face as I ran to that gate. And I finally made it. And I was able to actually get on the plane because there was a slight delay with boarding. So thankfully, I was on the plane. I was sat on the plane, clutching my phone as I was texting my boyfriend, and I was like absolutely soaked in sweat and tears. I really felt sorry for the person sat next to me, but I was just so relieved that I was on the plane. I was sat on that plane for 2 hours. We waited on that plane for 2 hours until they told us that our flight was now cancelled. I was just done. I picked up my bags from luggage and just kind of slumped on the floor at the airport. And I had to break the news to my boyfriend and my parents. I was just heartbroken. Thankfully, my parents decided to stay at a B&B nearby instead of driving straight home after they dropped me off. So I had to pay £100 for a 15-minute taxi ride in London back to where my parents were staying. And they managed to get me a room to stay on, which I was so grateful for. I needed a shower. I was disgusting. This was truly like the worst day of my life. This trip gave me so much grief. It fills me with anxiety anytime I even go near an airport. It was supposed to be like the greatest day of my life, the beginning of my new life in Denmark, but everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong. It was just dreadful. I don't recommend it to anyone. I hope no one else has to go through that because it was really just not fun and I cannot express that enough. I was sat with my parents at the pub in the B&B and I finally called my boyfriend to try and work out what our next steps should be now that, my flight was cancelled. Flinks, my boyfriend, was a savior of my sanity. I called him and he told me that he had booked a flight to the UK the very next morning. So he came over early the next day, and from there we booked a new flight to Denmark a week later on August 1st, my 19th birthday. And we got to spend a week together in England with my parents, and we just had so much fun in that week. On August 1st, we got a coach all the way to the airport on time, flew to Denmark, and literally as we landed, I got a text confirming that all of my belongings that were shipped over had arrived safe and sound, including my fully glass-cased PC, which I was not really expecting to survive that trip. But yeah, that's the story of my worst day ever. It was an emotional roller coaster, but it did have a happy ending. It was just very difficult, but I was so grateful to have my parents and my boyfriend to support me through it all, because without them, I definitely would be insane right now. It was such a difficult day. I really hope that you enjoyed the story. It's one that's very important to me because it was about a big moment in my life, and I think everything worked out fine. A big thanks to my awesome Patreon supporters. You guys help me in what I do and allow me to continue doing what I do. So thank you so much. And you can join my Patreon via the links in the description. And also be sure to follow me on my other social media, which you can also find in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.